All right. Well, welcome back to part two of episode two. We ran a little long on the resumes, so we wanted to break this up a little bit, and now we're going to jump into applying for a role, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll also talk about interviewing, negotiating your offer, and building your personal brand. So, all right, let's jump in. Bayley, I think we were ready to.
We were just talking about how to go about actually applying for jobs,
Sure.
uh, you remember we were just that's where we're talking about actually applying for jobs.
Okay. So now we got the resume, we're ready to go. Now we got to apply for a job. And job boards. Let's start with applying online on the job board. And if the listeners heard episode 1, they know how much we love the job boards, right? So look, I think that when going about applying for a job board, my best advice would be to network instead. Try to figure out who the hiring manager is, reach out to them, send them a message over LinkedIn, send them an email. Try to make sure that you get noticed. It's always good. Like if your resume gets passed back down to HR, right? Because now HR is going, oh, I got this from the hiring manager. I should look at it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll appreciate the initiative. I wouldn't harass them, right? You get one reach out, one follow up, but definitely don't keep harassing them. That never works. But again, the reason why I think a lot of times when you apply online, they're basically black holes, right? You apply online, you get that automated response, then you never hear from anyone. Which by the way is never good for the company either, because
it's bad luck.
Yeah, well, it's a bad luck. The company doesn't. It shows it
looks like they don't care.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly. That's the way people take it, right? It's like, oh, I took the time to apply and fill out the application, and send the resume, and they don't even
had to make a whole new Workday account again.
Right, right.
So,
So it's applying, and the other things. Sometimes you're applying to roles that are, they're not even real. They're just posted for compliance, that they've already filled these roles, and then they got to post them later, just for compliance reasons and stuff like that. So, if you're going to go through the online application, again, back to resumes, tailor the resume, read the job description, make sure you're lining up your experiences and skills to what's on the job description that's on the posting.
Yeah, totally.
Right. You want to make sure. Also, we talked about reaching out and following up. Yeah. Like if you apply and you get that automated response, it's okay to send an email saying, thank you for reviewing my resume. Is there any feedback? What's the timeline? What should be the expectations? Try to get, a response back. And I think most importantly, if you're going to be an active candidate and you're going to be applying to multiple places and sending your resume out, be organized. Have a spreadsheet. Remember where you applied, how you applied, when you applied. Kind of again,
what stage you're in. Like if you interviewed,
right. Exactly. Just keep track of everything you do. I can't. And I know that a lot of these websites make it so easy. It's like quick apply. And
just click once and then you forget about it. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Right. And so you click to all these different job postings. You got to keep track, slow down a little bit and keep track of all of that. Absolutely.
What do you think about, Leo, as just a candidate working with recruiters?
Right.
Like I know we more like reach out to people. What about like candidates who are reaching out to recruiters? Like what do you recommend for like people that are doing that?
Yeah. So obviously we think it's a great idea, right? Yeah. So definitely, you definitely want to work with the reputable recruiters in your industry. You should know who they are, or you should ask around if you don't know who the industry recruiters are. Yeah. There are many recruiters that will recruit locally or certain positions or something like that. But if there are recruiters such as ourselves that specialize in your industry, you want to reach out to them. And then on top of that, you want to make sure you're reaching out to the reputable ones. You want to reach out to multiple. We never ask for any candidates to give us exclusivity. Every recruiter has their own clients. different roles, different clients, different things on their desk. So
the recruiter's asking you for exclusivity. That's a red flag. You should, as a candidate for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. If a recruiter is asking you for money or for exclusivity, that you're right. That's definitely a red flag. Yeah. Candidates should remember that we're recruiters, right? Not job, or we're not a job agency. We're a recruiter.
It's a distinction.
Yeah, exactly. So our job is to fill roles for our clients, not to help find people jobs. We obviously do that. We take it very seriously. We do treat our candidates as their clients as well. We understand that we're dealing with people, and we want to treat them respectfully and so forth. But again, we can only do what we're tasked.
What's in front of us,
right? Yeah, like it can't be like, hey, did you find me a job yet? Sorry, no. Like I'm busy filling my clients' roles. I'm finding you a job. Yeah. So that is a big distinction. Same thing. Keep track of where your resume is being sent by who. Right. We don't want to get into any candidate ownership issues. Again, going back to episode 1 about candidate ownership and the issues that happen there. So keep track on your spreadsheet. Also, you want to tell the recruiters that they're not allowed to submit you without your permission. You don't want.
Absolutely. Yeah. You don't want to jam yourself up by accident. Like I don't think anyone's like recruiters never, it's like, it's best intentions, right? But it just can sometimes really.
Right. The reputable recruiters for sure. But there are some recruiters that will grab your resume and then
just blast you all over the place.
Blast you to every single potential company. And now all of a sudden you're anchored with that recruiter where, you should get permission, and you should be asking the recruiter, hey, is this your client? Is this an actual job opening? Do you have permission to work on this search versus, oh yeah, we're going to send you out as bait, and now we're going to anchor our fees, to your resume. Yeah. Also, most importantly, be honest, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just be honest. Yeah.
No surprises. The worst thing for recruiters if we get blindsided by a candidate and all of a sudden we find something out that we should have known. That really hurts. It makes us look bad. It makes the candidate look worse, right? So as we talked about at the very beginning on the resumes, in part 1, be forthcoming, right? Just let us know what happened, what's going on. If you sit there and tell us, hey, you resigned, but you actually got fired, and then
we're going to find out, like
people talk, their backdoor references, we'll find out. And then, And then, it doesn't look
good. It's just bad. Yeah. Now we're like, all right, well, now I can't present this guy anywhere. So it stinks.
Yeah. And it's probably something that we could have explained away, but
sure. And it was easily avoidable too. That's the thing.
Yeah. But now all of a sudden you look like a dishonest candidate. So be very open and forthcoming with recruiters. Let us know. Because that's the only way that we could truly help you is when we know the whole story. Kind of like lawyers, right? You can't lie.
Don't lie to your You're saying don't lie to your recruiters, don't lie to your lawyers. Yeah,
right. Exactly.
Don't lie to your doctors.
Right.
So we talked about like applying. What about hopefully these tips worked out great. Like they've got that interview. Like let's move on to the interviews, right? Yeah. Like just general tips and tricks. First, just like outright. Other thing though, I definitely want to dig in on is now, just especially like in this, day in a post-COVID world, right? A lot of stuff is happening just over video and over Zoom. Like, do you have any specific stuff for that?
Yeah. So absolutely. So first, let's just talk about interviews, going into an interview, right? The mindset, the mentality that we always recommend is that you should go into the interview and treat it more like a conversation and try to break the typical interviewer interviewee relationship, right? Where it's question, answer. But go into the mindset like, hey, I'm an industry professional. They're an industry professional. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to see that if it makes sense to work together, if there's an opportunity, right? And have a conversation. Best way to keep things conversational is to keep things very succinct, right? Where you answer your question, let them ask a follow-up and keep it going versus they ask you a question, then you go on this long-winded rambling rant, and So being succinct, I think it's very, very important. But, you asked about being on video. I think that's also something very important, is to understand you're on camera, right? So first of all, before you even get there, test your camera, test your connection, test your camera, test the lighting, test the audio, position the camera where, it's looking more directly at you. You want to make the image as small as possible. This is something that I always think about is eye contact, right? Where a lot of people will have multiple monitors or go full screen, so they're never really looking into the camera. Whereas, what's really worse with the multiple cameras, cameras on one, and then you look over to the left because that's where the image is, and now you're doing this the whole interview, and it doesn't, it just doesn't look right. So testing connection, testing your audio, video, setting up your camera. So eye contact, one of the things I do is I make the image of the other person as small as possible, and I place it right under the camera. That way, my eyes are more trained on looking at the person and looking into the camera.
Okay. Yeah. Also, just turn all your pop-ups off too, like on your phone. Yeah. It's one thing I'll always just give, like, make sure everything's good. Just not you spend all that time, getting everything all set up. Make sure nothing else is going to come up and distract you.
Right.
Anything else, like, what about like dress being on camera?
Right.
Like,
the appearance, right? You got to treat it like you're an in-person. If you would want to go to an interview in person, you'd put on a suit, right? It's not. It's business formal, I guess is what it's called, right? I don't think that a suit and tie per se is that important.
Depends on the role, I'd say, honestly, myself.
I think it really depends on the industry, right? Like if you're if you're in finance or law, then sure. But the AV industry is pretty laid back, so I would at least throw on a sports jacket. That way you're showing that you're taking this seriously, that you're dressed. You're giving the process its due, respect, right? That you want to make sure that you're dressed properly. Other things is have your resume printed out.
Yeah, have it on hand.
Right. Yeah. I can't. It always shocks me when people go on an interview and they don't even have their resume in front of them. And also have a notepad. It's totally okay to take notes, right? You put your head down. You handwrite the notes. Don't type them, right? We definitely don't want them thinking that you're on
your second monitor replying to emails or something.
Right. Exactly. Or texting people. So, the other thing you could do with that notepad is you could have questions pre-written. Have some questions written out ahead of time. Take notes. Anything that pops into your head, jot it down. It helps prevent, cutting the interviewer off, or blurting it out. For me, it helps me not forget what I was. Here I am patiently waiting my turn to ask my question, and then they say something else, and then I forget it. So I think it's also really important to. You can jot down questions so you don't forget. And then also any questions you might decide to keep it for later, right? There's always that part of the interview where they say, "Hey, Bayley, do you got any questions for me?" And you don't want to sit there and say, "Oh no, I think we covered everything." So you can,
you blew them all, like, just in the conversation, right? You don't have anything to ask now. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yes. So now you could be like, earlier we were discussing this. So I want to circle back. And now they're like, "Oh wow, this person's engaged. Listener, thinker, and stuff like that." So, taking notes during the interview, I think, is a good idea.
Okay, and like, what about? And that kind of goes into, like, what I was saying, with coming in with questions. Aside from having those questions, what other kind of prep should candidates be doing? Sometimes I've seen candidates just I'm just going to walk in there and see what they say.
No, you definitely got to be prepared, right? Preparing for an interview is crucial, right? If you show up to an interview and you don't know what the company does, and you're just, I used to ask, and I still ask, with any time I interview anyone, first question is, what did you do to prepare for this interview? I want to hear that they went on our website, checked out my LinkedIn, Googled, our companies and stuff like that. If they say nothing, interview's over. I'm done. Yeah. Like if they won't prepare for an interview, then they're never going to prepare for work either. Right.
Yeah.
So then if they say the right things, then I'll ask them a follow-up question, be like, hey, like what stood out or what interested you or whatever like that. And if they say something that's, weird or oh, nothing really, or whatever. And now I'm kind of catching them in a lie or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guess what? Interview's over, right? Because if someone's going to be dishonest, I could teach people skills, right? You could teach them how to work, how to do their job, whatever. You can't teach people to be honest and serious about their careers. That has to be a given coming in. So I think that preparation for an interview is key. It's so important.
Yeah. And what about when you're actually like going into how should you be conducting yourself within the interview?
We talk about the 3 E's, right, of interview.
Yeah.
Energy,
excitement, enthusiasm.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
As I say so enthusiastically.
Right. But, right. No, you have to come across as a high energy person. If you're not, who wants to hire a low energy salesperson who's going to sit there?
For a salesperson, no. Yeah.
Right. But even and understanding that different personality types tend to do different types of roles. But even if you're in a technical role and you have, a very introverted personality, you still got to bring the energy. You still got to
you might be a customer facing role too. You just got to you never know what role you're going to be going into. Maybe it's you'll be interacting with end users or customers. And if you're sitting there, so introverted.
Yeah. But even right. You mean introverted people, you still got to show your passion, right? You got to show your excitement that, hey, I love doing this project. So you don't want to go monotone and just talk like this the whole time. You got to, and what we tell our candidates, even, a lot of people say, oh, you want to match the energy of the interviewer. I disagree, because if you have an interviewer that's low energy, you still want to be 1 or 2 levels, above them, and definitely bring that energy.
Personally, I'm of the opinion if you're interviewing, you shouldn't be. If you're doing the interview, rather, you just shouldn't be low energy. I feel like that's almost like a trap for your candidates. You're setting them up to fail almost.
Right. But. No, right. That's true. You should be excited about interviewing candidates, and you should show the candidates that, and that's a big thing that we talk about all the time. It's hiring managers forget that, just because just because they're applying, or especially
it does not mean they're desperate for a job and that they need to they're usually, if you're working with reputable recruiters too, the candidate isn't desperate for a job.
Right.
And if you sit there with kind of an air about yourself, why, of course you want to work here.
Right.
You can turn a couple candidates off pretty quick, just being I don't need this,
100%. Yeah. So especially, candidates we submit to our clients, we're recruiting them. They're not applying, but even candidates who apply, it's not like they don't have other options. Right. So you still always want to sell the opportunity. Yeah. You got to recruit and sell throughout the process, which you're right. If the hiring manager is low energy, that's not a good sign either.
No. Yeah. What, you don't even want to be here? Why should I want to be here?
Exactly.
Right. What about when you're in the interview? Because I know there are certain things just they're kind of give me layups that questions are coming down the pipe. For instance, the tell me about yourself question. How do you recommend?
Not a layup. Surprisingly, that question I think has, everyone expects it, but I can't tell you how many candidates bomb interviews on this one question alone. Mm-hmm. And the biggest reason why is because they think it's a real question, and it's not. It's an icebreaker, right? They're hey, Bayley, thanks for joining us today. Why don't we get started? Why don't you tell us about yourself, right?
Yeah.
And sure, they want to hear something important. They want to hear a relevant answer, but it's not the time to restate your whole entire career and go on a 25-minute long-winded monologue about, well, I graduated college in 1994, and then my first job out of college was this, and then I went here. Like I said, 25 minutes later, interviewer is bored out of their minds. Interview's basically over, right? And you just bombed it. So my recommendation with the tell me about yourself question, 3 steps.
Okay.
First line, high level overview. For the last 10, 15 years, I've been in the AV industry, selling into this territory, calling on these type of clients, right?
Yeah.
Just a high level overview.
Yeah.
Line number 2, what makes you good?
Sure.
Your success.
What's unique about you? Yeah.
Right. What's your secret sauce? So I've been able to exceed quota, grow the territory, whatever it is, due to the fact that my tenacity, my ability to quickly establish rapport and gain trust, whatever you feel is your best attribute and what really separates you and what makes you good at your job, that should be line 2. So line 1, high level overview. Line 2, digging in a little bit, further. Hey, this is what makes me good at my job. And then line 3, just personal fun fact. Humanize yourself again. Remind them that you're a person.
Yeah.
And when I'm not working, I enjoy hiking, fishing, boating, yoga, whatever it is.
As long as it's appropriate.
Right. Right. As long as it's appropriate. Yeah. You don't want to sit there and say, oh yeah, me and my buddies love to go out to the bars till 3 a.m. Right.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. What about questions candidates shouldn't ask? They should avoid.
Yeah. So there's definitely 3 questions that you should not ask, especially in the first interview. Later on, maybe they come into play. But at the very first interview, definitely you don't want to go into compensation, right? We want to avoid that. You don't want to sit there and say, so what does the job pay or what are the compensation? It's too early. First interview, you want to focus on the opportunity, the company, making sure that it's the right fit for you, and then you go from there. Second question, I would say, is an extension of that. Like, hey, how much time off do I get? Right?
Yeah.
It just doesn't sound right. Like, hey, when can I start and how much time off do I get? Just doesn't go well together. And then the third question that I would not ask is anything that you could have answered yourself if you had done a little bit of research, right? So if you are asking, it's as bad as like asking, what do you guys do or what do you guys sell, right?
Yeah,
like,
you should. Yeah, you shouldn't ask that.
If you ask them a question that is right there on their website, or if a quick Google search, and they're like, yeah, this person's not prepared, right? It goes back to the very, very beginning. Like, hey, you got to prepare for this interview. So asking questions like an example of that for me, especially in our industry, and is when salespeople will ask the client, do you guys sell through distribution?
Yeah.
Right. To me, that is a little bit of a lazy question because it's an important topic, right? And you should you should cover it. But there's 5 or 6 major distributors in our industry, with a couple other regionals. It wouldn't take more than 5 minutes for a candidate to visit all the different distributors, check their line card, see if the company shows up on it or not. If it does, now you ask, hey, I was online. I saw that you guys sell through distribution through this distributor or whatever. What percentage of your sales go through distribution?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a totally different question. Yeah.
Right. You still get to focus on that topic, but now you're coming in showing that you did your homework, showing that you did your research and your knowledge of it. And now you can talk about, direct sales versus distribution sales versus just like, oh, do you guys sell? And if you don't see them, you sit there and say, hey, I visited these 5 websites. I didn't see you guys on any of these line cards. Are there any distributors that you work with? Right. You're still showing that you're doing your research and your homework. So I think that's important. I think when you ask questions, it's important to make sure you're asking important questions that matter to you, right? That you want to, and you want to explain why. I'm a firm believer that the questions you ask actually tell more about you than anything else in the interview, right? So if you're asking questions, I always like to recommend to candidates preface the question with why you're asking it, Tell them why it's important, right? And this is a good way of selling your values and selling your attributes. Like, hey, I'm very results oriented.
Yeah.
Right. So what is the biggest thing that I could accomplish in the first 6 months? Or first, when you say like, hey, what can I accomplish in the first 6 months? You're saying I'm results oriented. I want to accomplish things. 6 months. I want to hit the ground running. Yeah. I want to get off to a good start.
Yeah.
Or you could sit there and say, hey, I'm a big believer in teamwork, right? And so can you tell me about the rest of the team and who I'll be working with on a daily basis?
I like that one.
Right. Yeah. Versus saying, can you tell me about the rest of the, can you tell me about
my boss? Who do I report to?
Your boss, or can you tell me about the support team, right? And what's it called? So it matters, how you preface it and how you lay it out. Mm-hmm. Where now you're sitting there saying, yeah, you mean we're going to focus on what your attributes are, and saying like, yeah, I'm more team oriented versus tell me about the support team where it sounds a little self-serving, right?
Sure.
Care about yourself.
I like personal questions myself too. Like, talking to the interviewer too, trying to like build a rapport with them. Right. Just ask them too. Cause especially if you're getting along with them, like, what do you enjoy working most for about, whatever company you're at, or like what gets you excited to go into work every day? Right. I kind of like those personal questions to the interviewer as well.
100%. Those type of questions definitely, because it gets them talking about themselves and gets them talking about what's exciting, and it makes them show that you care about them and showing that you're connecting with them. Mm-hmm. So that's really good too.
Yeah. What about one topic that it's very important, right? But like I know we want to avoid. Like, what about compensation, right?
So compensation, I think it's really important to. My recommendation is to candidates is to try not to lead with a number.
Sure. No.
Right. Yeah. So first thing you'd want to do is you'd say like, hey. If they sit there and say, hey, so Bayley, like what are your expectations, compensation expectations? Say, what, at this time, I'm more focused on learning more about this role and this opportunity, make sure it lines up, that it's a good fit for me in my career, and then I'm a good fit for you and your team. And if we come to that conclusion, if we get to that point where we're in agreement, I'm sure a company such as XYZ will offer me a package that's fair to the market and fair to the value I could bring to the table, right?
Yeah.
So just your first line is more about just making sure that hey, I want to make sure it's the right fit for that I'm the right fit for you, and this is the right opportunity for me, and I'm confident. If they follow up and they'll be like, all right, cool, but we just want to make sure that you're in the same range, that we're in the same ballpark, then you go back to them and be like, all right, well, what's your range? What ballpark are you in? Right. And after, if they give you a number that works, great. Mm-hmm. If they don't, then you if they give you a number that's too low, you can very politely say to them, like, hey, look, like I appreciate that, but at this point in my career, I've already exceeded it. So I would, again, I'm interviewing, I'm looking for career growth. I'm looking for the compensation growth that comes with it. But then you want to hedge it. You want to kind of sit there and say, well, look, however, if it's truly the right opportunity for me and there's some long-term potential here, I might, I could be flexible too. I firmly believe that a lot of people will be flexible for the right opportunity if there is long-term, right? Like I call it a slingshot, where you pull back a little bit just to sling yourself forward. Like year one might be a little bit of a step back, but 2, 3, 4, and 5, it's way better than you make that jump. If they don't give you a number and they don't give you a range, and they say, hey, look, we don't have a number, we don't have a range, but I really need some number because I got to go back to HR or I got to go back to my boss. And at that point, and only at that point, like I would recommend you tell them exactly what you made last year
Okay.
To the penny. Like this was my base, this was my bonus, this is how much I took home total. Yeah. Only because I don't want them to come across as argumentative or evasive, right? You know, you just, okay, third,
yeah, okay. This is what it is. You know, let's move forward.
Right. But then I would still answer it the same way. I'd still say, but look, you know, obviously I'm interviewing, I'm looking for career growth and the conversation growth that comes with it, you know, and, you know, however, if it's the right opportunity, I could be flexible.
Yeah. And we're getting to the end here now, right. Like especially if we're talking about compensation in the interview, like how do you have any tips about like how they should wrap up an interview?
Yeah. Anything like that. So my favorite way of them wrapping up an interview would be for them to say, you know, as you're saying your goodbyes, right? You know, and you're like, hey, you know, thanks again for the opportunity to interview. Great meeting you. Enjoyed our conversation. I did have one last question, right? Kind of like the old Columbo, which Bayley, I'm sure you don't know.
I don't know what that is.
You're a little too young for that. But the old Columbo, right? Like, oh, one more thing. And they'll be like, okay, sure. Like, and then you ask them, do you have any concerns in regards to me being a strong fit for this role? And I think that, you know, this gives you an opportunity to find out what the objections are. And you got to listen, you know, because if they sit there and say, oh, no, not at all, everything was great.
Yeah.
We're good with that. If they sit there and say, no, nothing at this time, challenge it. Like, you know, okay. I've been around for long enough. When I hear that pause, I know people are holding back. And then you hit them with the key part. Like, hey, look, I would really appreciate the opportunity to address any concerns you might have.
Yeah.
Because look, sometimes concerns are misunderstandings, assumptions made, so they didn't even cover it. They just didn't see it on your resume, didn't think you had it, you know. Or they might sit there and tell you, like, hey, look, it's not going to be a fit, which I think most candidates would agree that they'd rather know right then and there.
Yeah, sure, totally.
And not spending more time or energy on that. So I think asking that question at the end of an interview, although sometimes can feel a little awkward, opening yourself up to negative feedback, usually brings out a positive result.
Okay. I'll also just say, like, after, it's a great way to end it. Also, if you're working with a recruiter after the interview, follow up with the recruiter. We want to hear.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Like, also just follow up, like just stuff that I know, like, you know, kind of just good manners sort of thing. Just write them a quick follow up email, right? You know, even if it, like, you know, you realize the interview isn't going to work out, still just good manners. Like they took the time out of their day to like talk to you. Just send them the quick thank you email, even if you're not interested. If you are interested, like, you know, definitely say, hey, thank you, interested in possibly working together. Yeah. It's not your time to restate all your qualifications. Just, you know, keep it short and sweet. Shouldn't be over a paragraph in my mind. Just a quick thank you.
Right.
Do you think I am curious. That's a lot of great stuff for the first interview. Anything different about a second interview? Like, say it's going to be a little bit of a longer process?
Right. Well, usually there's going to be multiple interviews, right? So the further you go, the more preparation, right? I always recommend, you know, for salespeople, especially, you know, typing out their sales process. We all have one, right? Every salesperson has a process. Not many people won't be able to sit there and say, all right, well, here's my whole process, or off the top of their head. So you sit down and you outline it, right? Just for your own purposes, to organize your thoughts, to kind of put your process together, to kind of think through, like, all right, how do I generate leads? How do I follow up with clients? How do I turn opportunities, you know, leads into opportunities and so forth like that? So just having your sales process, 30, 60, 90 day plans are always good. Again, it's a good way to, it's a good way to organize your thoughts. It's a good way to, organize your thoughts. It's a good way for questions to start revealing themselves. Because as you're putting this plan together, you're going to be like, wait, how do they do this? Or what about this? So rather than making assumptions, you start putting, you know, holes into your plan, and that's where the questions are. So definitely more preparation the further you go through the process.
Yeah, I'd say too, you know, outside of the interview as well, when it comes to like building your brand and stuff, like just something I did personally when I was doing, like, stay posting on LinkedIn, stay building your network on LinkedIn, keep reaching out to people in industry. You know, if you're in a position where don't have something going on every day, you know, use that downtime to like gain more skills, like post that on LinkedIn, show potential employers that you are working on yourself.
Yeah. Building your personal brand.
You're just developing yourself and you're keeping forward with it. But yeah,
that's
sorry, good job. Yeah. I was just gonna say we're getting to the end here. So, just wanted to say to wrap it up. If you made it this far, thank you guys for listening. Hope this was informative. I know there's some great information that I took, like when I first went through this prep, like learning about it, that I took with me. I know I'm going to take it with me in anything I go to after this. Also, I think it's evergreen information, right? You can use that in anything that might ever come down the pipe. All right. We've been going on for a while here. Just looking at the clock there, Leo, about stuff we've been going on for about this topic for so long. We're splitting it up into a two-parter here.
Yeah.
But, I think we've covered a lot of great stuff here in this episode, but let's wrap it up here. If listeners, if you made it this far with us, thank you. Thank you so much. Please like, comment, subscribe, give us a 5-star review, all that good stuff. Whatever platform you're listening to this on, we really appreciate it. It helps us out a lot. So please do. And that's from all on my end. Thank you guys so much for listening. Leo, want to say any last words?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we shared a lot of information. We know that 2024 was a difficult year for many. I think our industry in general, had their challenges. Very optimistic about 2025. If we could be of help, please do reach out to us. That's what we're here for. We'd love to talk to you, learn about you. And if there's any opportunities that come across our desk, of course, we'd love to share them with you as well. So, like I said, please do reach out. And again, if you made it this far, as Bayley said, please hit that like, subscribe, and 5-star review. We appreciate you and appreciate you sharing, listening with here. And episode 3 coming up. We got a guest coming in, so we're really excited about that. And we'll see you with our next episode. Good luck this week with all of your hunts, and thanks again.